in person. You're here in my studio, and I'd like to just show you the place where I work. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes. Oh. Yes. Yeah, go place.
I think when you see the studio, you'll see the kind of things that inspire me to do drawings and paintings. When I was your age, I used to love, in my art class, drawing objects. We had to take 2 objects every week and draw a picture of them. And I loved it. And I also love going out in nature and collecting a lot of like pine cones or different things I'd find out in the woods or by the lake, and I draw them. And I just really enjoyed seeing the beautiful creation out there, and just wanted to capture that in pencil and in paint. So I'm going to unplug this iPad, and I'm going to take you on a quick little tour of the studio. So you won't see me, but you'll see where I work. This is the room. That is my studio. And then let's see. I'm going to flip the screen. Can you see okay? Can you see things?
Yeah, I can see that.
Okay. This is these are a lot of objects we collect, like objects from nature. And then over here there's bottles and pieces of lobster claws and rocks and pine cones. And then we collect like old watches and just lots and lots of things. And then there's shelves here that have a lot of old tools from the 1800s. And I think some of these things came from England, which is always nice. Musical instruments. And then this cabinet has a lot of tools in it. And screwdrivers, scrapers, all kinds of tools. And then there's these like nozzles. So it's kind of like a little museum here in a way. We've just collected these little things, bottles, and birds' nests. So, and these are just a lot of things we find out in nature. And so, yeah. And then I wanted to show you just a few. This is a painting I worked on. And then there's, take you to a drawing. That's a paintbrush on an old book. And we'll come around here. This is where I paint over here. I have it all set up, and I paint with oil paint and egg tempera. This is egg tempera where you mix egg yolk with the pigment. And that just got started. But this is a picture of an old pipe. And these are my father's shoes that I bought him when I was about 8 years old. I did a painting of them, a drawing of them. And that's the boots down there. So something as simple as an old pair of boots can make a wonderful drawing. And that's kind of the texture of the boot. Can you all see these okay?
Yeah, I can see.
Good. And this is just an old thing of string with a funny looking thing. These are old bottles. Big seashells. It's a fossil. And then we have a lot of these tins. These are old tins. Some of these are from England. All different colors, and they make beautiful still lifes. This is a drawing I did of a seashell that's coming up out of the water, kind of a mysterious picture. And this is a little bird across the street. A lady brought over to me because it died, and it flew into her window. So I did a drawing of it. And the name of the song in the old hymn book from church was Farewell. So that was supposed to be the music of the bird that it was singing in our neighborhood. So it was kind of a way to tell a little story of a little one of God's creatures that was here with us and is gone, but it's just to kind of remember it. So some people think it's very sad, but I thought it was kind of nice. And Ellen's holding up a couple of portraits I did. That's a friend of ours from here in town where we live. And when you see the drawing, the white is, it's the white paper. I just didn't draw the white. I drew around the hairs. And it took many weeks to finish that. And another friend. And that's kind of a close-up of that. And then this is just a clam shell with a lot of crab claws in it. So anyhow, that gives you a, let's turn this around. Right. So that's the studio, and you see how it's kind of inspiring in the morning and have all that stuff to choose from to do drawings of. It's that's a big part of my work, is having a space like this I can come into and work and just find things that you'd like to draw and explore with a pencil. And Ellen's going to hold the iPad, and maybe you could back up a little bit for now. Thanks. So this is a drawing table where I work. Here we go. And I'm working on a drawing right now, and it's, I'll have to flip it around again. This drawing I've been working on for about 4 or 5 weeks. Let me get my hand off the camera. It's a picture of an old door. We live by the ocean, so this is a fisherman's shack where he keeps his stuff. And these are the shovels that were leaning there, and the old door that's falling apart. And that's the latch. And these are the hinges for the door. And I love the texture of the wood. It was just the beautiful textures of the wood. And what took so long is it takes like a whole day to draw just a little part of this. And I'm just finishing up here in this corner. Let's see, there it is. See, I haven't drawn that yet. But it's, as you're looking at this stuff, some of you might have some questions, which I'm happy to answer in a little bit. So let me do this. Oops. So I kind of chose, I think I sent this to your computer, but these are the pencils I use. They go from 7H, which is a very hard pencil, to a 6B. And you can see the harder the pencil, the lighter the color it makes. So that kind of gives you the whole range of colors you can make, the tones. They call it values, which you probably learned, dark to light. And so this is the lighter, and that goes to the darker. When you buy a set of these drawing pencils, oops, they're lined up. They're kind of lined. This is a set of pencils, and you can see they're all lined up in the box with the different darknesses. And what they do is they take the graphite powder, which is, this is called graphite powder, and it's just black powder that it's almost like you sharpened your pencils and they saved all the dust from the pencils. And when they add a little bit of clay to it and compress it, it makes it harder. And when they leave the clay out, it gets very soft. So when you have a pencil, it says 2B, that has very little clay in it. It's a very dark pencil. But if you use an H pencil, as you know, it gets much lighter because there's a lot of clay in it that keeps the color very light. So that's what that's all about. The other thing I wanted to show you is when I use pencil, graphite, this is graphite and that's ink. And if you can see, the black of the ink is much darker than the darkest dark you can get with a graphite is actually gray. It's not really black. So if this is the range of dark, like you can get from black all the way to white, with pencil, really, you can't get to black. The darkest dark starts as a gray. So it's almost like if you think of an orchestra and you have a whole orchestra, they have the dark, the deep notes, the really low tones, all the way to the violins way up high. Well, the graphite is missing some of the darker notes because it starts, the darkest it has doesn't go all the way to the darkest that you can make. So I love it because it has a nice quality of kind of a gray, silvery color. And if you have something that's done with ink, it has a much more deep, rich black. But I like kind of the grayish darks. So that's why I like using pencil a lot. And I do about half of the work I do is in pencil. I really love it. And I had a teacher when I was in college studying art that told me that I should always do drawings as much as paintings. Even though people think, well, you're an artist, you do paintings. And he said, no, you have to work on your drawings. And over the years, my drawings have been as successful as my paintings. So I'm glad I listened to that teacher. He was a really great guy. What I just had a couple of things to show you here. This is like a lock. See, this is, you guys have been working on drawing different objects there. And the drawings look really nice from what I can see. But this is a piece of paper where I was trying to describe this lock on paper. And what I'll do is put that right here. I think it's okay. Here we go. I'm going to flip this around just so you can see what I'm seeing. Okay. So with this, I sketched out the outline. Where is it? This is hard to do this. It's all backwards. I sketched out the outline of the lock and some of the details I just sketched in there. And then what I did was made a paper. I have tracing paper, and you can cover the, let me get it for you here. Where did I put it? Tracing paper. Is that underneath there? Yeah, it was so organized. There it is. No, it's here. Okay. This is a pad of tracing paper. It's hard to do all this with one hand. Help me. Okay, so here we go. Tracing paper. You can do this, and then what you do is with pencil, you draw on the tracing paper the outline of the lock, and then you can cut out that shape, and it makes kind of like a covering for the drawing. And I taped it on there from underneath with a few little pieces of tape to hold it in place, and then I go over to my bowl of graphite powder, and I have an old wash. Where am I? There we are. I have an old washcloth, and down in this bowl is all the graphite powder. So I can reach down, and then where am I? Okay, this is really this is a new skill for me. I feel like I'm training for working in outer space or something here. You can rub the graphite powder on, see? And when you rub it, you get a beautiful gray. And if you've covered that with the tracing paper and just rub, this will all get dark, but not where you already drew. So that's a nice way to kind of get a nice overall gray. And then you can take the other part of the cleaner cloth here and rub it down. The other thing you can do is they make these things called stumps. Have you guys seen these stumps?
Yeah.
Do you have them here at school? Okay. This is a big one, which I like. And then you can also rub that, make a beautiful soft gray that way. Now I could take a pencil like this, and I could spend a lot more time just making a gray like this, which maybe I want to do. Maybe you'd like to do, like working that way. I find sometimes getting the gray in there right away is nice. And then when you get into this part of the thing, I'm trying to get this so it's focused here. I drew the letters and the light was coming from on top, so it casts like shadows right here. And this became light because the light's hitting this surface and lighting it up, and it's causing shadows here. And the same with all of these things, and like getting the texture on this. For me, I try to study the light and how it hits an object and try to bring out that quality so people look at it and go, oh, it looks like a picture, you know, a photograph. And I just love that when you see that it's handmade, but it looks so real. Would you mind holding this, Sonny? Thanks. One of the things I was going to show you, oh yeah. So say you've put the gray in, and say I wanted to make a, can you zoom in right here? Down here? There you go, thanks. Say I decided I wanted to put something like white here, like maybe a couple of little pebbles or something coming off the surface. I cut little holes in this piece of paper. So you can lay that here, and then you go like this. And see how it makes that beautiful little white spot in the middle of the gray? And I'll make a couple more. And you can make them different sizes. Here's a smaller hole I made. And you can also make, if we were to take, I'm going to get a piece of paper from, where is it? Here it is. Say I fold a piece of paper in half here. If you wanted to make a line on an area, I'm cutting just a little bit along the fold. So when you open the paper, you can see that. You see that? Can you see the slit in the paper?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Then if you lay that there and you erase, you get that beautiful mark. But then you could go in, and what I'll do here is pretend these are the lights coming from, this is the angle the light's coming from. Then it would cast a shadow here. It would cast a shadow there. That would be the shadow of the hole. And then if this was like a slit in like a depression in the wood or whatever, there'd be a shadow cast here. So can you see how that looks kind of like very real and three-dimensional?
Yeah.
And then if you were going to make this like a wooden, say a piece of wood with annual rings in the wood, you could draw into the gray, and that's what takes me a lot of the time. But they also have a kneaded eraser, which you've seen. This is a kneaded eraser, and if you take it and squeeze it, and I'm probably showing you things that you've already discovered there on your own, but you can also go like this. Well, it's not working on this so well, but you can lighten up and make kind of the grains of the wood. Like that's what I did here a little bit. I'm covering the camera. There we go. See, so you wind up with this very believable texture of wood by capturing where the light is and where the shadow is. And for me, that's a lot of fun. I just, and just one last thing here. If you take a piece of, this is just white tape right there. Now watch what happens if I press this down on the graphite. See? And then I push it gently on the graphite, and then I peel it up. Look at that. You get this beautiful texture-like thing. And so you can play with that too and experiment with that. And I'm just showing you all these different things you can try to do with graphite, as well as use the pencils. Another thing, this is steel wool, which this is number 0000. It's the finest they make, so it doesn't really hurt your hands. You don't get it in your fingers. But you can also take this and rub this, and the steel wool rubs the graphite powder in very smoothly. It gives a whole different effect than rubbing it with cloth. So you get very soft grays. Trying to show you all the little tricks here. Yeah, that's it. The other thing I just thought I'd show this is I have an oak leaf right now. Probably it's the same there, but all the leaves are falling off the trees. They all turn beautiful colors here. We live on the coast of Maine, which is kind of like Norway. It has all these fingers of land that go out into the ocean. So we live on the water. Right behind our house is the water. But I'm just doing a rubbing of this leaf, which you've probably done. The leaf moved, unfortunately, but you get the idea. Well, there's a lot of things. If you're going to draw an area on your drawing paper, you can experiment with maybe what kind of textures can I get by rubbing. If I put, like, this is sandpaper I'd be put behind the paper. See, this is on the regular drawing board. This is on the sandpaper. So if you're going to create a background behind whatever you're drawing, like over here, this is smooth, but if I wanted a textured background, I could do that. The other thing, which is, I'm going to do this, is sometimes, like on some of my drawing here, I was trying to get just a random kind of a texture. And I take the pencils and I just go, put some music on, you play drums. You can get some beautiful texture. And then if you were to rub over that, it looks like concrete kind of. And then you can even go in with the pencil and play with that and draw some details. That's what I did down in this portion of the drawing. And if you can see, the ground here was a paper, tar paper. So I needed a pattern of texture. And that just helped make this beautiful pattern that looked like, when you get back, it looks very real. But I was just playing with it. So that's some of what, okay, oh yeah. This is a pencil I use as well. It's called a lead holder. And this is an old fashioned, my father had this, but you go like that. And what it does, it puts a very sharp point on the pencil. It's very sharp, so you can make a very fine line with that. So anyhow, you know, that's one of the things I really love about graphite. And I'll just show you a few other pieces while we're here. This is just a leaf, a simple leaf, but again, I cut that paper and I laid it over the drawing of the leaf and I rubbed the graphite. And in drawing, it's always good if you can manage to have contrast. So the light leaf against the dark background makes everything seem to have more life. And if you think of music, you know how you're listening to a symphony or something and it goes like, dun, 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 dun. The reason it's so powerful is because there's silence and then the music comes out, and that's a big contrast. So it gets your attention. And if you use darks and lights that way, to kind of, people's eyes are very interested when something is light against dark or dark against light. So that's that. And this is another lock here I drew. And if you zoom in here, honey, see the texture, guys? It's just all kind of very, very random. Like, things in life have a lot of randomness to it. So I try to make marks that kind of capture that randomness. So, and then there's this one. You're going to think, what's this guy doing with all these locks? And the answer is, I haven't got a clue. I just love them. I think they're kind of cool. And this is some of the texture of that old lock. This is another one I did. That shows what we just learned about making the shadows of the little knobby points there. So, and this is just a quick little sketch of this is just showing all the different kinds of textures you can get with putting tape on there and erasing out where the pencil was. I erased that. I cut a piece of paper the shape of the pencil and erased, and then I drew into that. And this is using the light on the, making it look like wood grain. So anyhow, that's one of the reasons I love graphite. It's such a beautiful describer of texture and light and dark. And I think we can maybe flip this around. I also know we only have 40 minutes, so
I don't want to be on there.
Ellen's very modest. She's my faithful assistant. That's my title.
Lovely assistant.
No, I'm sorry. I always get it wrong. She's my lovely assistant. I say faithful, but she says, no, it's lovely. And she's right. It is she's very lovely. Would you mind holding that? No. Thank you. Oh, lovely assistant. All right. So anyhow, that's pencil. That's a really quick little showing of what I do with pencil. And we're looking at, what time does the class end? 9?
Our class ends at 2:30, isn't it, right?
So we have 20 minutes. Is that it?
10 minutes, yeah, for questions. That'd be lovely.
Okay. I want to leave time for any questions you might have about being an artist. One of the things I brought, sometimes, like this is a magazine that came out here in Maine, and they used one of my paintings on the cover, see? So sometimes you get your work there. I did print a book of drawings of my work and stuff. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop one of these in the mail and send it for you to have there in the classroom.
Oh, that's
so you can,
fine. That's brilliant. Thank you, John. Lovely.
Yeah. So do you have any questions about anything regarding artwork, being an artist, making artwork, pencil? I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Jill, did you make some notes this morning? So if you want to just get those notes in front of you, and if I can ask Gemma, you guys can select a few students to kind of voice their questions, and then we'll go from there. And girls, please feel free now to make some notes as well, because you can use this as a valuable resource in your artist research pages. So you can take what John's saying about his work, and you can use that within your own analysis as well, girls. So it's really wonderful. Okay, so Miss Gerald, who are you going to choose first for your question?
I didn't quite hear that.
It's okay. It's okay. I'll relay them back to you, John. Just a front.
Earlier, John has answered,
yeah,
it's through his tutorial. So we're just seeing if there's others that,
yeah,
obviously
you've answered quite a lot of them already, John. So which is brilliant. So there's still get some more.
I've got a question whilst we're waiting.
Okay, yeah. So our trainee has got a question, John. If that's okay.
Sure.
I was having a look at your work online last night, and I was obviously looking at all of your graphite work, and then I made notes of is it egg tempera? Is that how you?
Yeah.
So I'd never heard of that myself. So I was researching what is it, and do you actually use egg yolk, or do you use some other kind of glutinous substance to make the egg tempera?
No, what I do is we'll come right over here. And I'll sit right here. This is where I work, and this is these are dried pigments. These are just dried powdered pigments that are powdered and different earth tones. It comes in little bottles like this too, and it's just the pigment. There's nothing in it. And what I do is I take an egg yolk and dry it off. Believe it or not, you can pick up an egg yolk. You can pick it up like that when you dry it off gently. And when you pick it up, you pop the bottom with a fork or a pin, and I drain the egg yolk into a little baby food jar. And then you add, this is water. If you have that much egg yolk in the bottle, you just add that much water and stir it together, and it makes like a creamy quality liquid. Then when I mix the powdered pigments down here,
I can't see.
okay, there we go. Down a little lower. There we go. I take the egg yolk in an eyedropper, and I put a few drops of the egg yolk in with the powder, and it makes this beautiful paint that's egg yolk with the pigment in it. Where am I? Here I am. I don't know if you can see that, but it's just a piece of pigment that's very kind of waxy. It almost feels like wax when it dries. You know, when you eat eggs, what it's like on your plate to try to get the egg yolk off. And then, over here, this is a painting I'm working on, and this is all dried eggs, believe it or not, with pigment in it. And you build up layers and layers and layers of color. And I'll show you one artist whose work I really like. He's always been one of my heroes. I don't know if you ever heard of Andrew Wyeth. He was an artist that lived right here in Maine where I live. But he, for a painting that would show. Here's an egg temper painting he did of a dog. And that's,
Yeah.
so it captures detail really well. So it's an old technique. I think Botticelli used it before they invented oil paint. That's all they had to make the pigments kind of stick together and stick to a surface. So they used egg yolk back then, and in the early 1900s, it started to come back as a technique. It had been lost for all those years. So I love it. I've always loved it. So.
Oh, brilliant. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Jared, any more questions?
Yeah, so Olivia, to ask your question, because I think really what's the
So she's just asking, what is your intent behind your artworks? What is the meaning? Did each picture have a different meaning, or is it?
Yeah, sometimes the pieces are kind of, I think the thing I'm always trying to do is tell a story. Sometimes it's just a description of an object, but sometimes it's putting one object in relationship to another one where it might not tell a story you really know the ending to or exactly what the story is, but like it's an old photograph with an object. I've done some of those where people say, well, painting, this is an example.
Make a note of this, girl. Yeah, well done. Maybe wrong.
Painting I did, and I found this old photograph, and we had these old tins and bottles and things, and I always thought that photograph, I think somebody took this about maybe 100 years ago, and so I wanted to put it in a painting to tell the story, and I thought, well, maybe this was an actress. She looks like she could have been an actress, and I just thought, well, maybe we'll call this the actress, and put a few tins in there of different things, and so it kind of tells a little bit of a story. This is like another old photograph of a woman that I kind of liked, and I thought, well, maybe she was keeping a diary, and that's her diary, and in her diary one day she pressed a leaf. So I thought I call that piece her journal, which is like a book that this lady kept. You know, just a little story. This is an old watch. Getting in here. Here we go. It's an old watch face with a picture of a man from the Civil War over here on an old book called New Testament. So this kind of tells the story of a man that we don't really know who he was, and maybe some connection with time and an Old Testament. So the other thing Ellen just reminded me of, I'm trying to get out of here. I'm stuck in my corner here. There we go. He was never heard from again. Yeah. Yeah, Ellen reminded me that one of the themes that I like is the idea of redemption. And it means taking something that was kind of thrown away and considered valueless, no value to it. As many of these objects in my studio are, they're just found, they were thrown out or they were for sale in a junk shop. And it's to put them in a new light where people look at it and they go, wow, that's beautiful. And it's like, well, it wasn't, it was in the garbage. But you know, as an artist, you try to take something very humble and put it out where it can be seen. And what some of my favorite stories in literature or where the hero is someone who is in the beginning of the story, the last person you'd ever think they could be a hero. But I think, you know, kind of Harry Potter or Frodo, or in Les Miserables, the Jean Valjean, and, you know, he was a prisoner to start with. But anyhow, that's the idea of redemption. I love that. So I try to put that in my work too. So.
Thank you, Dan. Mister, are there any more questions?
Yeah, so, Cody, to ask you a question, please, about personality, how long does it take for you to actually ship into work?
Would you mind repeating that so I could hear it?
So, how long, John, Cody wants to ask how long it takes you to complete pieces of work that sort of quantify that number of hours that you might spend on a piece.
Yeah, and you know, for me, that's one of the challenges in my work is that I really love to include a lot of detail and be very true to the object, which means that I set a very high standard of detail, which means that I sit in here for many hours and many days working on these pieces. And so you'd be surprised how long some of them take. And I put music on, and what I do, and maybe you could try doing this with your different classes, but I try to do early in the day what's the most difficult, so that when the afternoon comes, like for me, it's morning here, I'm full of energy. You guys are finishing up your day, so you're probably tired and you want to go home, go to bed or something. But you know, in the morning, I try to do the more difficult parts of my artwork for the day, and then in the afternoon, I can do part of the painting or drawing that's more easy. And but anyhow,
more than one at a time.
And also Ellen reminded me, my lovely
Lovely.
assistant, that what?
That you start six paintings.
Oh yeah. What I'll do is I'll start a few different drawings at the same time, because you do get tired of looking at the same drawing and solving the same problems in it all the time. So that what I do is I start a drawing, and then I have 2 or 3 started. So when I wake up one morning, I come in here and I look at all 3, and I say, well, that one doesn't interest me today, and that one doesn't, but that one I think I'm interested in. And so I'm working at something that I'm very interested in. And then a day or 2 later, the one that I wasn't interested in, I'm getting more interested in, and I go back and work on that. So it's almost like you have a number of things on the fire, and
Which makes it hard to tell how long each one takes.
Oh, so that makes it hard to tell how long each one takes. But I would say my drawings, like the one I showed you, the one I'm working on with the shovels there, that's been about 5 weeks or so now, 6 weeks maybe, working all day, every day. So yeah, they take time, but there's no shortcuts that I found to kind of, you know, it's just kind of putting a lot of care into every square inch and not getting too discouraged. I just had a show where I did a landscape that was about 4 feet. It was very wide and about 3 feet high, and that took a couple of months. And so any other?
Many hours.
Yeah, many hours. That's I should have said that. Many hours.
Good, good. Any more questions, no? Girls, any other questions? Yeah, okay, go on.
What's your favourite piece of artwork that you've done?
Yeah, so what's your favourite piece of artwork, John, that you produce? What's your favourite?
In my work, oh boy, that's a hard one. That's kind of hard. It's kind of like having children. You know, you love them all. You don't really have a favorite. They're just so different. So usually it's the one I'm working on, and then I finish it, and then it's on to the next one, and that's my favorite. But I'm sorry, I don't have an answer.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. Girls, any more questions you'd like to ask? Any more questions? Lovely.
Do you sell your work, John?
Do I sell it?
Yeah.
Yes, I have a gallery in Boston, Massachusetts. That's about 3 hours south of us here by car. And then I have a gallery that represents my work in Portland, Maine, which is about an hour south of here. And every other year, I have a show at one of the galleries. So I'm always working on preparing about 15 pieces for the next show. And then I also get some commissions where people, like I'm working on one now, that pencil drawing is a commission that somebody actually calls up and says, will you do a drawing for me of something or whatever. So I'm really thankful that I can make a living doing it, because there's a lot of artists that, you know, are working, doing very wonderful work, that have to do other work to support themselves while they're doing artwork. But thankfully, I've been able to support myself with artwork. During my middle years, for about 15 years, I got involved in starting an orphanage in Brazil. So I left my artwork for part of my life and did some different kind of work in Brazil. And the last 20 years, I've been back here in Maine working on my artwork full time. So, yep.
Okay.
But
Brilliant. Right, girls, would you like to say thank you to John for today? So, can I hear a thank you, girls?
oh, thanks. And by the way, girl, I just got this last week, I had a Zoom meeting like this with my high school teacher, who, after all these years, 40 something years, 50 years, we're still friends because they meant so much to me. So I'm sure you guys will remember teachers there at the school who's had a special place in your life, like Miss Morris and the others, because you're getting something very valuable, and you know, you'll take that with you. So it's so nice to be with you. Thank you for having me, and thank you. I'm honored that you studied my work. Wow.